Hey everyone, before we start this video, I just wanted to mention that only 20% of you are subscribed. So if you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing to support the channel. Welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In this video, we're going to be discussing beloved Hogwarts headmaster Albus Dumbledore and diving deep into the question, did he ever kill anyone? Now, the Dumbledore that we come to know and love in the books and films is a calm, cool, gentle, and most of all calculated man. He has more wisdom than he knows what to do with, and he is widely considered to be the most powerful wizard of all time. It seems like he's got it all figured out, and he gives us the impression that he has always had it figured out. But if we call back just a little bit into Albus Dumbledore's past, we can quickly find out that things were not always so peachy keen for Albus Dumbledore. Like everyone else, Albus too had to find his way in the world, and to ultimately achieve what he did, he made a few mistakes along the way. At the end of the day, he is only human, just like the rest of us. Albus Dumbledore was born in late August 1881 in a town called Mold-on-the-Wold, a mainly wizarding town in the UK. In the autumn of 1892, at the age of 11, Albus began attending Hogwarts. When he first started attending Hogwarts, he had a bit of a hard time. This stemmed from stigma surrounding his father, Percival, who was sent to Azkaban for attacking 3 Muggle children. Percival's actions were in response to Muggle children in his hometown attacking his daughter and Albus's sister, Ariana. People were under the impression that the Dumbledore family hated Muggles, Albus included, and this made his formative year at Hogwarts difficult. Despite hardships in his family during his time at school, he excelled as a student, which is no surprise given that he is perhaps the most innately talented wizard of all time. Albus went on to win the Barnabas Finkley Prize for exceptional spellcasting, an award presented for showcasing excellent spellcasting techniques. He also went on to win other wizarding accolades, such as a gold medal for groundbreaking contributions to the International Alchemical Conference. Albus was as exemplary a student as one could be, and was clearly a shining pupil with remarkable capabilities and an uncanny ability to learn. After finishing school in the year 1899, Albus returned to his hometown of Godric's Hollow to be with his family after the death of his mother, Kendra Dumbledore. Albus, being the eldest sibling, knew that he would have to take care of his younger siblings, particularly Ariana, who had problems controlling her magical abilities. It was during this time that Albus became friends with Gellert Grindelwald, a young man who had moved to his small village to live with his aunt, Matilda Bagshot, who was a family friend of the Dumbledores and Grindelwald's great aunt. Immediately recognizing each other's magical prowess and amazing magical capabilities, the two boys hit it off immediately. Despite being very close, the pair eventually hit a crossroads. They hit a point where their paths would diverge in a very big way. It was Grindelwald's intention to find the Deathly Hallows, then lead a wizarding revolution that would effectively put an end to the International Statute of Secrecy, breaking down the secretive divide between the two worlds, Muggle and magical. This revolution would create a global power hierarchy that would place powerful witches and wizards at the top of the food chain, effectively giving them full control of Muggles and Muggle affairs. What may surprise you most about this plan is that Dumbledore was fully on board with it. What we see Grindelwald trying to accomplish in Fantastic Beasts as the antagonist is something that our very own beloved Hogwarts headmaster almost contributed towards. It's hard to believe that the gentle, kind old man that looks after the Hogwarts student body once wanted control over Muggles. It seems so out of character, and it's really a huge blemish on Dumbledore's record. Yes, he was young, stupid, impressionable, and Muggles had indirectly torn his family apart, but still, having wizard kind rule over Muggle kind seems a bit extreme. The only reason that Grindelwald and Dumbledore eventually parted ways was because Grindelwald used the Cruciatus Curse on Dumbledore's brother, Aberforth. Aberforth openly expressed his disgust at their plan, and Grindelwald did not handle the situation very well. Though Dumbledore was very close with Grindelwald, he was always going to protect his brother. When the Cruciatus Curse was placed on Aberforth by Grindelwald, a duel broke out between the 3 wizards. Albus's sister Ariana got caught in the crossfire and was killed. This effectively put an end to the relationship between Dumbledore and Grindelwald, and meant that Dumbledore would have no role in Grindelwald's plan to establish a global wizarding hierarchy. So, even if Dumbledore never went through with the plan, there was clearly a time in his life where he made some morally dubious decisions. He wasn't the man that we know today, and I can't help but wonder what sorts of things he did while he was in this morally transient state. But I also wonder if he was willing to make these more questionable decisions in his youth, if any of it followed him into adulthood. Was Dumbledore more of a morally dubious person than we might care to believe? Dumbledore is known to be the only person that Voldemort ever feared. Even the Death Eaters feared him, and their whole thing is that they are pure evil and don't fear anything. Interesting that they would fear a wise old wizard, Regardless of how powerful he is, if he is just pure in the greatest sense of the word, surely Dumbledore must have an edge. Though this edge isn't exposed to us directly, there is a clue in the Deathly Hallows which suggests that Dumbledore may even be capable of murder. "Of course you were," said Harry. "Of course. How can you ask that? You never killed if you could avoid it." "True, true," said Dumbledore, and he was like a child seeking reassurance. In this passage, with the utterance of just 2 words, Dumbledore effectively exposes an entirely new side of himself to the reader, and he was like a child seeking reassurance is just a slightly less direct way of saying, yes, Dumbledore had killed before. I would imagine that Dumbledore had killed, but only when the circumstances demanded it. If he had truly never killed, then he would have given Harry a much more direct response. Something like, yes, I would never kill someone, or I have never killed at all. There are also a few other, less direct segments from the books and films that suggest Dumbledore is capable of killing. When Harry looked into the pensive in the last movie to see Snape's vision, we see Snape saying, "Don't kill me," to Dumbledore. Why would Snape ever say, "Don't kill me," to someone like Dumbledore, if he truly didn't believe that Dumbledore was capable of killing? Snape attended Hogwarts while Dumbledore was there, so surely he would have known the type of person that Dumbledore was. Snape is a highly intelligent man, and what this tells me is that he was privy to Dumbledore's darker side. He knew that he had wronged Dumbledore, the Potters, and the Order of the Phoenix by working as a Death Eater, and he pleaded with Dumbledore to spare his life because he genuinely feared for it. He genuinely thought that Dumbledore was capable of killing him. At this point in time, Snape was of course a Death Eater, and as we know, the Death Eaters fear Dumbledore. I can think of one reason that they'd fear him beyond the possibility of being captured. That reason is that they feared that they would be killed by him. War is a dirty business, and Dumbledore was the leader of the Order of the Phoenix, the main opposition of the Death Eaters. In war, there are always casualties, and Dumbledore is no fool. He must have understood that sometimes killing was necessary. The only way that I would be able to read this differently is if Snape just forgot human decency altogether. Perhaps after hanging around the Death Eaters for such a long time, he forgot how decent people can behave, not expecting someone like Dumbledore to spare his life. Had a member of the Order of the Phoenix come face to face with Voldemort, they surely would have been met with the killing curse. So that's my argument for why Dumbledore likely killed. But there are some counter-arguments for why he possibly never stooped quite so low. The following passage from the Order of the Phoenix shows an exchange between Dumbledore and Voldemort, which indicates that Dumbledore doesn't need to kill, as he believes that there are fates much worse than death. "You do not seek to kill me, Dumbledore?" called Voldemort. His scarlet eyes narrowed over the top of the shield. "Above such brutality, are you?" "We both know that there are other ways of destroying a man, Tom," Dumbledore said calmly, continuing to walk towards Voldemort as though he had not a fear in the world, as though nothing had happened to interrupt his stroll up the hall. "Merely taking your life would not satisfy me, I admit." "There is nothing worse than death, Dumbledore," snarled Voldemort. "You are quite wrong," said Dumbledore. Despite Dumbledore admitting here that he doesn't want to kill Voldemort, it still comes across as quite sinister. He walks towards Voldemort with such confidence, and calmly explains that simply killing Voldemort would not completely satisfy him. This makes the counter-argument somewhat less effective, because even though he's expressing that he doesn't want to kill Voldemort, it almost sounds as if he's suggesting something even more sinister, which would make him capable of killing in my eyes. The main argument for Dumbledore not being a killer is the fact that Grindelwald's life was spared after Dumbledore defeated him. Grindelwald was immensely powerful, so the train of thought here is that if Dumbledore could defeat someone as powerful as Grindelwald without killing him, then he wouldn't ever really need to kill anyone. My issue with this is that Dumbledore had a very complex relationship with Grindelwald, and probably still had feelings for him at the time of his defeat. I don't think that Dumbledore really wanted him dead. He was fine with him just being imprisoned in Ermengarde. Dumbledore has no personal attachment to Death Eaters, so in my eyes, I think that he would be far more inclined to kill them, particularly if they put the lives of those that he loved or cared for in danger. I don't think that he ever killed if he could avoid it, and the following passage from the Order of the Phoenix shows us one way that Dumbledore dealt with Death Eaters. "If you proceed downstairs to the Department of Mysteries, Cornelius," said Dumbledore, "you will find several escaped Death Eaters contained in the Death Chamber, bound by an anti-disapparition jinx, and awaiting your decision as to what to do with them." However, that doesn't mean that he didn't kill them in the past, or that he wouldn't be capable of killing them ever again. Death Eaters don't seem to fear imprisonment, but they definitely fear Dumbledore. What do you guys think? Do you think that Dumbledore ever killed? Was he capable of it? Let me know down in the comment section below. Until next time, you're a wizard, Harry.